In the 60 years of Walmart, the ethos seems to have transferred generation to generation, CEO to CEO. So there is something that you're doing right, which is like a secret sauce.
Start with the purpose. I think when you take personas and the domain knowledge, which is I think is irreplaceable according to me, and then that combined with purpose-driven mindset, I think it scales beautifully well.
But how do you sort of unlock and bring in the AI thinking, and how are you transforming your workforce in the truest sense then?
I think it's actually a flywheel to me. Culture actually involves three things: culture, talent, and innovation. Culture unlocks the talent fuels innovation, and innovation further strengthens the culture.
Could you walk us through like one part of the value chain?
I think the one close to my heart of late is catalog. I'll give you this analogy. If you think retail ecosystem is like a supercomputer, catalog is like an operating system built into it.
There are many problems when you are retailing at this scale. How do you pick which problem to solve?
Isn't it fascinating? I mean, that's the power of retail. That's what I feel I'm blessed.
Welcome to GCCs Unfiltered, where we talk about the things no one does in the GCC ecosystem. No slides, no fluff, just real conversations with leaders actually in the thick of it. I'm Nitika Goel, your host, the CMO and Managing Partner at Zinnov. My guest today is Balu Chaturvedula, SVP and Country Head of Walmart Global Tech in India. For our listeners, Walmart is one of the world's largest retailers with over $600 billion in revenue and over 10,000 stores across 19 countries. Phew, that kind of scale needs some serious technology behind it. And Walmart Global Tech in India is one of the key centers building just that. And Balu leads it. He's been with Walmart for over a decade, joined as a senior director, and has built his way up. Before Walmart, Balu has worked at Yahoo, Motorola, and HP. 30 years of building technology at scale. Everyone I've spoken to about Balu says the same thing. It's not the resume that stands out, it's the person. Balu, welcome to GCCs Unfiltered. So it's truly an honor and privilege. Thank you for being here today, Bud.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much.
Right. So obviously it's about GCCs Unfiltered. I know you've had a long-standing relationship with Zinnov. We worked. I want to ask you, in the 60 years of Walmart, and obviously the company has been synonymous with retail at scale. Yet today, the company is increasingly viewed as a technology-forward organization. Looking back, what do you think or believe is the inflection point where Walmart stopped being just a retail company, but a technology company that is shaping the way business operates?
Awesome. I think to me, and this is a learning for me as an individual, as a person too, right? It all starts with a purpose of saving money so people can live better. Mm-hmm. And we've ingrained that mission as part of our DNA, a timeless philosophy/value given by none other than our founder, Sam Walton. It actually starts the journey from there. From then onwards, I think we've gotten the story bigger, better, and made it to the larger canvas. Bringing all of that to the technology, I think according to me, there are three pivotal points in digital transformation. I think the first and foremost is about building the foundation, whether it is moving from legacy mainframes to cloud native architecture, or getting rid of systems that are age-old systems, moving to modernization technology. I think all of that coming together is, I call as the phase one, and has been an incredible journey. The phase two is the transitioning to building capabilities. Most of the companies, if you think about it, they've always built features, and feature rich. As you know that we serve three large markets, Sam's, US market, and a bunch of international markets too. So when you combine all of this together, building features versus building capability, that means build one capability but largely applicable for all three markets. I would call that as the second phase of the journey. And we have done stupendously well in that phase. The third one I call is, I think, most exciting phase, according to me, is accelerating with AI. One of the core assets that Walmart has is the data that it works with their customers, members, and that is very centric. And I think our customers and our members believe that this is the most trustworthy partner that they can shop with. So I think we've had the credibility. So we use that data responsibly, but that's going to be our key differentiating assets. As we accelerate through AI in this particular journey, the foundational platforms that we are building and the capabilities that we are building across the market, build once, reuse multiple times, I think is going to accelerate the digital transformation that we are in. So I think we are well poised. I think we are well set. I think we are on the right journey.
I think you brought in a very beautiful point from what I've sort of alluded to from this discussion. A big question that I obviously want to talk about, you operate at extraordinary scale. I mean, probably scale that many of us can't even dream of. The joy of A/B testing, does it even exist? Because one mistake impacts 500 million users at one go, right? So how do you ensure that you're able to do something where you're saying you build once? So how do you do it right, but do it in an innovative manner still?
I think great question according to me. The way Walmart is known, and I think our new CEO John Furner talks about this, right? When speed meets scale, Walmart stands out. I think that's very, very, very naturally fits into what we do, how we serve our customers and members. But picking on that, I think experimentation is absolutely on. And I think especially when you do business at that large scale, you don't have too many chances and too many choices to make mistakes. I'll walk you through an example how we have done this together. Walmart has massive number of assets in terms of physical assets. One of the huge thing is supply chain network. When I joined the organization, we were running a homegrown operating system that's actually running, which is called warehouse management system across all these facilities. Like many other legacy systems, it is a brilliant system, but it has its own pitfalls. So we were actually started on a journey to convert this into a cloud native management system. So we're sitting here miles away. We know about our assets, but we know very little about our assets. We made certain assumptions. We built the first capability. And then we took the software. We got a couple of lanes to test within one of our consolidation centers. We went there. We tried to put the software. It did not work. We said, we have to change our mindset. So we went back to the drawing board. We understood. In fact, what we did was that we actually got a professional videographer. We took every single operation recorded and we measured each time. We made that as a proof point. And we started to break down each of the modular problems and said, let's solve receiving, let's solve scan, let's solve atomic operation. So we started to actually build that kind of a core capabilities and brought all together. It's been a fabulous journey. Today, fast forward all of that, I would say 80% of the US network is actually running with a cloud native warehouse management system. That's conceived and we built in joint partnership with our both US and India team. It's one of the biggest success for Walmart and in terms of like technology, looking at and what we can build for our customers, members.
Speed at scale. I mean, you talked about it beautifully. I think how do you create it as a system? So if there are other GCCs that had to deploy it, are there some guardrails or a playbook in place that one needs to sort of go through in order to ensure that it is done repeatedly again and again? And what I also want to compliment Walmart on is you've had different CEOs. It's not just a family-run business. You've had professional CEOs, but the ethos seems to have transferred generation to generation, CEO to CEO. So there is something that you're doing right, which is like a secret sauce.
Yeah, I think I would say start with the purpose. I think that's most important thing. Like we've known for a very long time, we build technology with a purpose-driven mindset. I think that has been very, very helpful. And the second most important thing is that know the problem that you're actually trying to solve. Know your persona, that problem you're trying to actually solve for, right? Like for example, are you solving for a customer? Are you solving for a member? Are you solving for a partner or an advertiser, a seller? You need to know, otherwise it's very difficult. Like how do you get the maximum output of that? I think when you take personas and the domain knowledge, which is I think is irreplaceable according to me, and then that combined with purpose-driven mindset, I think it scales beautifully well.
Could you walk us through like one part of the value chain, right? We talked about supply chain, pricing, store ops, where decisions that used to be made based on human instinct today are looked at very differently with technology at the center of it. So, and what do you believe has been lost or gained?
Yeah, so I think we are a microcosm of Walmart, and especially at our India location. And the reason I say that is that we pretty much touch every aspect of retail, and looking at the persona is concerned. So in that sense, I would say that we are really blessed that we actually get to serve every part of the retail value chain. I think the one close to my heart of late is catalog. I'll give you this analogy. If you think retail ecosystem is like a supercomputer, catalog is like an operating system built into it. And what is catalog? Catalog is fundamentally drives about like two core attributes. One is product/item. The other one is offer/listing. These are the two fundamental objects. Why is it important? So if you look at retail value chain, you can map everything around an item. Like for example, you forecast an item, you procure an item, you receive an item, you ship an item, you transport an item, you buy an item, you return an item, you inquire about an item.
Absolutely.
So it's the core. That's why I say it's an operating system of a retail value chain. It's mandatory that you have to get the catalog product data. It's one of the most pristine. And over a period of time, pretty like every other retailer, Walmart has also gone through multiple iterations and evolutions of that. Last year, we embarked on a very interesting journey with technology complementing that journey, right? Traditionally, what happened was that when you get a lot of this data, multiple sources of data, when you're trying to aggregate this and trying to get the best quality data that you want to serve for your customers, you actually figure out that what is the right facet of the data that you need to merge or deduplicate. That's a lot of human judgment. And there's nothing wrong with that human judgment. But the problem is it's not scalable. So we're talking about 850 million data points on a daily basis. Like no matter how much manual workforce that you give is not going to help you or serve you for that point of time. So how do you solve a problem? I think this is where technology complements and augments to human intelligence. So we blend using LLMs and GenAI technology. We brought in the value of like compute power to this particular problem, and we solve a bulk of the problem and only give the actual core attribute that we cannot resolve it by system software to the human judgment. So the value chain for the human judgment has actually gone very high.
Correct.
And because most of the problems that have been previously detected are caught by the system, and then there's only small amount of work that's been done. So today, we already launched this last year and we continue to accelerate on our journey. That's just one example how you can actually take power of technology and then complement with what you're trying to do.
I think one question is obviously there are many, many problems when you are retailing at this scale. How do you pick which problem to solve? Like today you have picked a catalog, but catalog has always been like the top most important aspect for your business. Supply chain obviously is also important. Warehousing is important. But how do you as a technology first thinking decide like this is the problem we're going to combat today?
Isn't it fascinating? That's the power of retail. That's what I feel I'm blessed, right? What this organization has to give it to me, right? Putting my mind to creative solves. I think again, it's no secret like any other organization. It starts with goal setting process, right? Right from our CEO office, and then you start to look at on which dimension. Like if you think about retail, the 4 key pillars of retail is assortment, price, convenience, and trust. These are the 4 non-negotiable principles. We largely use those 4 principles, and we look at in which dimension we are actually trying to create value stream, and then we apply what are the kind of concrete goals that we want to have, and we distribute the problem. But I think the role of leadership, I think, which is what I think you're probably also hinting, is that your ability to go unlock where the teams require solves, I think is where your value gets exemplified as an organization, as a culture. I think that's where it's very important to stay focused on end-to-end picture, but not just only get lost only in one problem. While it is important to solve the problems at depth too. So you pick and choose through the value stream of the chain, and then there's no magic. I think it's more like grind work that you have to just go through.
So obviously people who are building for AI, very naturally, there is an inherent sense of urgency that is coming in because they are getting disrupted by competition, it's needed, etc. So in that lens, and given how you think philosophically as an organization.
I know that I'm saying that we're building capabilities. If you look at tech as an organization, the way I look at it is like a pyramid structure. On the top of the pyramid, you have business results. You are doing a purpose-based goals. In the middle of it, you're doing whether it is a platform, AI, data, acceleration to that. Correct. At the bottom of it is, I call as engineering excellence, operation excellence, and investing in your talent. So this is a pyramid that I would see. So you have to approach from the bottom of the pyramid. So again, for our journey, so today we are able to sit here and say that we are building capability because we started with foundation, as I told you.
Oh, engineering excellence.
Absolutely. We started with engineering excellence. We started with operational excellence. We brought the rigor, like what you do, like don't break it. Like, once we saw a certain degree of maturity, graduation to the next level, which is how do you make sure that you build now everything with platform mindset? When you do that, doing with speed, doing with intentionality, or whichever pivot we want to create, the business results acceleration will happen much important. So then the leadership alignment and direction has to be minimal. But to get to this core ecosystem of the first and second, the bottom and the bottommost above layer, it just takes time.
Got it. So when we're talking about this whole architecture, Balu, the other side I wanted to talk about is, what decision and how do you make decisions of what to build versus buy? Does Walmart build everything that you have in your technology architecture? Do you also buy? Do you partner? What happens in that ecosystem, especially when you're trying to do it at the scale that you are trying to do it?
I think it's all about strategy. Build versus buy. I think it's this question keeps coming up. Do what's strategic core to what you are trying to do as an organization.
Core versus context is what you
Yeah. So, and then wherever you can partner well. Like for instance, we made a very clear call in the beginning that we're not going to build LLMs, foundational LLMs, frontier LLMs. But we said we are going to leverage LLMs and actually build a powerful retail experiences. The recent announcement, right, which I think we are working with OpenAI to enable the agentic commerce, is a great example, right? We don't have to reinvent that wheel. Somebody already done the plumbing work for us. So we just have to pick the right partner to work with and then give that comfort for the customer or member, right? Like, I think that's how we look at it, but it's mostly about how you want to define your top-down strategy.
Which technology shifts, Balu, do you believe will most fundamentally reshape e-commerce as we know it, or commerce over the next few decades?
Yeah, I think at an abstract level, I think there are three important things, right? Like data, intelligence, and and bringing the insights with the data and intelligence and powering the future of the retail. I think that seems to be the key area of focus. The way I look at it is that the future of retail commerce is agentic commerce. I mean, I am so gung-ho about it because I see the real power of it. I think in our case, our CTO already anticipated the direction and we've already made the bigger bets. Right? We have 4 super agents.
Oh, wow. So you talked about phase 3 and you also talked about a perfect use case of how LLMs are also helping you with your catalog and things like that. Obviously, the people that you have and that unlock has to come from the people that you have. Your workforce has to transform. You talked about the fact that you need to have domain. You need to have customer empathy. You need to have all those aspects, which I'm guessing your pre-phase 3 generation already had. But how do you sort of unlock and bring in the AI thinking and how are you transforming your workforce in the truest sense then?
Yeah. So I think it's super relevant that you have to acknowledge the change ahead of everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Like I think you have to embrace the change. I think that when I think of culture, I think it's actually a flywheel to me. Culture actually involves 3 things: culture, talent, and innovation. Culture unlocks the talent, talent fuels innovation, and innovation further strengthens the culture. So I think they're very, very interconnected according to me. Culture is, I would say, like any other organization, I think it's a tone at the top. What leadership says and walks the talk, I think means a lot. There are a lot of people who are trying to watch and observe, learn from you, right? Like for instance, if I go in front of all my associates and say that you all have to embrace AI, and if I don't do that as a role model example, it leaves a very, very bad impression. So we're being very intentional about it. Like, when we talk about AI transformation, we said we started with leadership as a goal, and then we percolated down to the developers, all personas saying that what does it mean for you at your level? I think that's what we have tried to do that. Then comes to the talent. And talent, I think, again, reskilling is something that we have to be very intentional about it. And there's also a little bit of a reluctance. Why should I learn? But you just have to make them realize it's a change management philosophy. Like change comes in 4 phases, right? Resist, deny, accept, commit. Like, but you have to believe yourself that you are the commit phase and make sure that the rest of the people also commit to the same journey that they are going through. It's very important that you invest. And talent is just not one-dimensional activity, right? It's just not about reskilling the talent. You have to create experiential learning. You also have to partner with your, I would say external ecosystem, like co-create using university partnerships, college partnerships, or startup foundations. All of this is going to give you a lot more greater ideas. And that actually further comes back to the final question, which is innovation. When you have the right leadership mindset and when you have the right talent and the leadership enables for the people to do the right level of risk taking and right level of work, and then innovation naturally flows into that. So that's why these three are interconnected, interrelated, and that's how we do it at Walmart.
Balu, I'm going to ask you specifically about you. I know you're a person who enjoys learning and expanding themselves, but like you said, doing it as a persona fit, how does AI change your role and then you start showing hands on work? Like, what was uncomfortable for you? What was comfortable for you? What did you take like duck to water? What did you say, like, oh my God, I really have to build muscle so that I can role model for the rest of my team?
Honestly, I'm still uncomfortable every day when I wake up in the morning because the space at which this technology is evolving, there is no scope for complacency, right? It feels that you have to stay like out in front of every change that is happening in the industry. So that I think is the number one thing. Uncomfortable is that I think it's the domain AI is actually touching seems like humongous and vast. It took some time for me to realize that how does it complement what you do versus how does it compete what you do.
Yeah.
I think that's a switch for me. Originally, I was thinking it competes what you do, but more and more you start to play with it and you understand how it actually complements with what you do. I think you start to naturally embrace the journey. And once you believe in it, as I told you, just a while ago, that then I think your job is to make sure that more people believe you around you. And I think that creates a network effect. So, but to your point, I'm still uncomfortable.
So if I have to ask, like, obviously you're still uncomfortable, but you're plowing through it every day. When it's percolating downwards, do you face resistance? Because one of the things when we are speaking to leaders is like we understand the import of it. But like you said, the education of why this is important, and everybody has this halo effect around them. It will impact somebody else, but not themselves, right? And how do you educate at scale? And your scale is a large scale. So
yeah, I think
you're a teacher as well.
yeah. But I personally think you have to understand the why behind some of the behaviors that you see in the organization. And I'm not saying this is just because of AI, but if you go through any change management exercise in any of the organization, you will see a resistance. So what I see, the why behind the resistance is it going to make me redundant in what I'm trying to do? I think that's a psychological safety at place. So all the more reason reskilling is important. Apart from that, if you can actually prove to your own employee, workforce, that like each one of the work that we are trying to do is very important and relevant for the organization, that's going to be very powerful. And I say that very proudly because that's how we've always approached it. If you ask who we are a people-led, tech-powered omni-channel retailer. And we said this multiple times. I think we always believed in making cognitive load of the people lesser, so they do best what they're doing, which is serving our customers and members. So similarly, every enterprise has a story. I think they have to pivot around what that story around is and tell them that where they can actually come and contribute. But don't worry about tool A versus tool B. But how do you create value? I think that's what will unlock everything.
I know you've talked about culture. You talked about culture, talent, innovation as a loop or a flywheel, but you came in 10 years ago. How were you culturally aligned and how quickly? Can you give us some of the steps, what you experienced, where you started experiencing Walmart culture, and how do you do it today to a latest or a new Walmartian today?
Yeah. So I call it as like a 3-step journey, according to me, right? I call it as enable, empower, and elevate. I think these are the 3 important things. And rightly called out, when I joined the organization, I knew about software systems, but I knew about retail very, very little, right? And then in my journey, I discovered that if I have to be making an impact in this organization in a positive way, I have to understand the insides of like what is what. So you have to learn how a store works. You have to learn how a FC works, how a DC works. So we make a conscious effort in training our associates, not just classroom training, but a significant amount of associates go to US, visit stores. They actually take rides with our transportation drivers. They understand what it actually, I'm talking, and not just last mile, and we're talking about driving like middle mile delivery too, right? So I think we create these experiential learning programs in such a way that our associates actually can truly understand the value of it is. That to me is called enable phase. Empower phase is that I think this is where leadership comes into big play, right? Once you've given them the right tools and techniques and also the right amount of domain knowledge, how do you give that risk appetite? I mean, how do you create that risk in others mindset or a risk taking mindset? And then how can you make sure that they can continue to create new experiences? And to your earlier question, I think you have to help them experiment with what that you have to do that. When you do these two, the elevate automatically happens. You don't have to them. I think it's up to one's individual's like passion and goal that the next phase of my career has to be this. I think you have to, as a leadership profile, you have to do very little in the third phase. The first two are intentional about it. If you set the tone with the first two, the third one magically happens.
If you look 5 years ahead, right? Do you see the traditional GCC model evolving into something fundamentally different, perhaps a global integrated organization? Or do you even say, like somebody I spoke to said it won't exist? So I would love to understand and get your point of view in terms of where do you see it'll come to bear?
Yeah, I think my point of view is that we are already in the part of that journey that, I can't exactly say we are 30% or 40% of the journey. If I go talk to my fellow leaders in the industry, especially representing GCCs, compared to like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a good number of roles are global in nature. And in fact, PL is also shifting back to some of these locations. So which is a phenomenal way to represent the ecosystem. One thing that we probably don't have to work very hard is that the value of the GCC ecosystem is realized. But this will only get exemplified that if we being intentional about the change that technology is actually bringing, how do you re-envision the roles? How do you make sure that how do you stay relevant? I don't think that's going to change. I think the world still needs a lot of people to work on a lot of interesting problems. And in fact, this technology will probably erase the boundaries and then bring geographical locations to more like a virtual notion rather than a physical notion, according to me. So more and more I'll see integration. So I think GCC will continue to play a very phenomenal role. They may be called GCC or something else, but that's a different story. But I think the value that I think the GCCs are creating will go a long way.
Thank you so much, Balu. But before we go, I'm a big fan. Like you may be a big fan of cooking, but I'm a big fan of Karan Johar show. It's my guilty pleasure. So I always do a rapid fire round with all the leaders that I have on this show. So I'm going to start. Balu, what is the one thing that nobody knows about you, but you're willing to share on camera? Why not?
I'm a good cook.
Good is by personal rating or stamp of approval from your wife?
I would say family rating. Family and friends rating.
Awesome. The store of the future in one word.
Intelligent.
Intelligent, okay. Data or real estate, what's more valuable?
Data, because it makes real estate smarter.
Well, very good answer. AI hype or historic shift?
It is an inflection point. If you don't embrace the change, you are history.
Got it. So you are historic if you don't follow the hype. Love it. A product mindset or a process mindset?
Clearly product.
Clearly, there's no negotiation there, right? One technology that you believe will disrupt retail the most?
Agentic commerce.
Got it. Okay. Agentic commerce. The toughest part of digital transformation is?
Culture.
Culture? Okay. Now I'm going to come back to you as a person. If you had to start Walmart today from the grounds up, what would you do?
Yeah, I think I would actually probably go back and read Sam Walton's book and then borrow a few chapters from him and see how do you understand your customers first and start with that as probably the notional. But as I said, it's a very tough ask.
If you were not a technologist today, what would your alternative career be? Chef?
Probably. I haven't thought about it. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you don't know anything beyond technology. There's enough happening on your plate. If somebody had to write a book which is based on your life, what would its title be?
It's not a book title, but there's always something that I read long back and it stays with me. And I think that stanza, 4 lines reflects me as a human being. It's like hearts like doors to open with ease, 2 very little keys. But don't forget 2 of these or thank you and please.
Oh, wow. What is the first thing that you used AI personally for?
I've used it for a lot, but I think off late, what I've been using is actually, me and my daughter, sometimes we study together if she's in a good mood. And I think the best thing that happened is that And I don't know, I forgot most of the maths she's doing and the science. So I do a lot of model question papers for her. And I selfishly generate answers, and just when she writes the exams, I correct it. It's been a phenomenal help. And she keeps wondering, like, how am I able to generate these many question papers for her? So as long as she doesn't know, I'm good with it.
Genius.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for your time, Balu. Truly, it has been an absolute pleasure. I think every bit of you exudes empathy, personality, everything that you talked about, that you brought to Walmart. You also have brought to this conversation. Thank you. It's been very informative in terms of how you're thinking of problems. We've talked about the systems that you've helped build. We've talked about the technology that you continue to build, and also what it means for the world at large to adopt technology, and also a little bit of wisdom for GCC leaders. So again, thank you for your time. It's been a great conversation, and I look forward to having more conversations with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for tuning in to Zinnov Podcast. You've been listening to our new series, GCCs Unfiltered. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com.